Okay, here I am. I have knit the back all the way to the top, and it's just straight across. I put all those stitches on a circular needle and left them live. Then I started the front, it was identical to the back, and I'm now at this point where I'm going to bind off those 5 stitches. Now, why am I going to bind those off rather than put them on a holder? This is a choice point. I mean, you could put them on a holder, but I like to bind them off because I want to hold that placket tight. I don't want it to bow or pull out at all. So I bind off very carefully so that they match. Now, my calculations tell me I need 5 stitches bound off there. I have a total of 49 stitches minus 5 is equal to 44, divided by 2 is, I can do this even in my head, it's 22. So I am going to work 22 stitches, bind off 5, and I'll have 22 stitches on this side. I'm going to start a new ball of yarn, and I'm going to work both of these sides up at the same time. And that's because I want to make sure that I get them even. In my case, I was on a purl row when it came time to do this, so I'm going to work 22 stitches first. Okay, I've worked 22 stitches. Now notice I have to bind off 5, but I am not going to bind off right here because this is the first of the bind off stitches. This was the end of my 22. So I'm going to knit 2 more before I bind off the first one. And make sure that you don't bind this off too tightly because you're taking a stitch that is upright and laying it over on its side, and it's a little bit wider, remember, than it is tall. So 1, 2, 3. That was just that one little trick I wanted to show you. 4, 5, because sometimes people will knit the 22 and then start binding off on the very next stitch, and you have to knit 2 more. So there's 1 on my needle, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. So I'll have 22 on this side as well. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this row, come back, and when I get to here, I'm simply going to pick up another ball of yarn and start working both of them at the same time until I get to the neckline. And that is at, oh wow, that was something that we didn't mark on the pattern. So let's go back and mark that right now before we start knitting. We know that we had 5.5 inches before we bound off for the center placket. There are 9.5 inches total from the cast on edge to the first beginning of the crew neck shaping in the front. So our 9.5 inches minus the 5.5 inches that we've already done gives us 4 inches. Now you can do your calculator. 4 inches times my row gauge, which is 6.15, is equal to 24.6 rows. So I need to work 25 rows here before I stop and work this crew neck shaping. So you go ahead, figure out how many rows you need to work straight before you have to start the front neck shaping, and knit straight to there. Make sure that you work both sides at the same time. Don't forget to mark your underarm with thread. You don't have to do that, but it saves time later, and it also can save you from error because you've already counted it once and you'll count it a second time. And so it just is, it's one of those measure twice and cut once ideas. You know, I always count everything at least twice. When you come back, we're going to talk about crew neck shapings and this one specifically. But I have 2 quick tips for you and that I want to give you before you go. The first one is, and I went ahead and I did a little bit more knitting on here. The first one is when you join a new ball of yarn, make sure that you have a good long edge that you leave hanging there. And the reason is when you go back to work this in, you can stick a needle in there and you've got plenty of wiggle room to go back and forth and then cut it off. If you just leave a short end, then when you try to put a tapestry needle in there, you've got to take it out and it's too short to work. So give yourself a generous thing. The other thing is I've gone ahead and I've knit a few rows on here because I wanted to show you this. Notice that I stopped in the middle of a row. So I have a piece of yarn coming off here and a piece of yarn coming off here. Now, where am I supposed to go? Am I on a purl row or am I on a knit row? So this tip is always go all the way across the row before you stop. Do not stop in the middle, because then when you come back, I mean, of course you can count your rows. However, it's easier if you just finish on a row, unless you get interrupted and like a child is being born or the fire alarm goes off or something really important. Then you can stop in the center, but make a quick note. By the way, I do have a written note right next to me that says you are on a knit row. So when I start this back up, and I'm going to do it right after I turn off the camera, I'm going to finish this side. Okay, I'll see you when you come back and we'll work on that front neck.